Are India and China close to a reset? This sort of stuff is usually front page news, but not this time because only one side is talking about it, and that's China. Their military spokesperson has made some significant claims. He says there's been progress at the border, that differences have been reduced and consensus has been expanded. Listen to this.
The border affairs consultation and coordination working mechanism between China and India in core commander level meetings. China and India have had in-depth exchanges about relevant issues in border regions and further reduced differences and expanded consensus.
The face-off dates back to 2020. That's when India and China clashed in the Himalayas in Ladakh's Galwan Valley. Since then, things have been tense. Both sides have built up a military presence. India has around 50 to 60,000 soldiers in the region. China has a similar number on their side. And diplomacy? We've had a number of meetings so far. Foreign ministers have met, national security advisors have met, and so have the military commanders. Put together, some 50 rounds of talks have happened between India and China. And what have they achieved? Well, both sides have pulled back from some friction points like Galwan Valley and Pangong So. But a couple of stress points still remain in places like Depsang and Demchok. These issues are older than the 2020 clashes. The question is, have they been resolved now? Or has some sort of consensus been reached? China did not specify that, but they did say that differences have narrowed. And India? The government has not said anything officially, but we've seen some interesting reports. Take a look at this one. It says, and I'm quoting, significant progress has been made along the border. It also hints at a possible deal, one that could factor in India's concerns. You see, Indian soldiers used to patrol a lot of these parts, but after the Galwan clash, they pulled back. The idea was to create a buffer zone to diffuse tensions. So New Delhi will want that old status quo back. They will want to resume those patrols. And this report says it could happen. But like I said, none of this is official. Foreign Minister Jaishankar has been getting a lot of questions on China. First, he said 75% of the issues had been resolved. Then he said the relationship is significantly disturbed.
Those negotiations are going on. We made some progress. I would say roughly, you can say about 75% of the disengagement problems are sorted out.
But once we deal with the disengagement, there is the larger issue, which is both of us have brought very large number of troops up to the border. So there is what we call the de-escalation issue. Then there is the next step is really how do you deal with the rest of the relationship, because right now the relationship is very significantly disturbed.
So what do we make of it? What explains the sudden push for consensus? Well, the timing is interesting. Russia is hosting the BRICS summit next month. Both Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping of China are expected to attend. So maybe it's a symbolic push, an attempt to de-escalate before the summit. We saw that in 2017 as well. India and China were facing off in Doklam then. But ahead of the BRICS summit, they struck a deal. They decided to de-escalate. Maybe that's the strategy again. But even otherwise, we've seen a push from China. They have been urging India to normalize ties, whether it's asking for direct flights or faster visa approvals or easier investments. Listen to the Chinese ambassador's pitch for closer ties.
I also appreciated the similarities between our two neighbors through Indian people's desire for national rejuvenation, aspiration for a better life, adherence to traditional values, and pursuit for modernization.
Now, this raises two questions. One, why is China so desperate? And two, why is India so hesitant? Well, Beijing is in a tough place right now. They face a stronger US-led alliance in the Pacific. Just look at what is happening with the Philippines. They're clashing regularly at sea. So maybe Xi Jinping doesn't want two active borders. If he had to choose, the Pacific is more pressing than the Himalayas, especially in the middle of an economic crisis. Perhaps that explains Xi Jinping's desperation. And what about India? Well, New Delhi has been clear about one thing. You cannot decouple from China. The finance ministry has called for more Chinese investments, in fact. China is also India's top trading partner. Yet, New Delhi sounds less enthusiastic about a reset. You see, it's always a question of who needs it more. And right now, that's not India. The Indian economy is better placed. The leadership is being courted by the West and the global South. So why should India take a bad deal? They can easily hold out for a better one. Secondly, trust is an issue. Many leaders, including Prime Minister Modi, engaged with China in good faith, and each time they were betrayed. So why would 2024 be any different? Just consider the latest controversy over Arunachal Pradesh. A team linked to the Indian military scaled a new mountain there. They decided to name it after the Dalai Lama, but China lashed out at them. They called it illegal, null and void. Why? Because Beijing claims Arunachal Pradesh as their own, and the Dalai Lama is a sore point for them. How can you trust a country like this? Which is why it makes sense for India to wait for a good deal to capitalize on Beijing's desperation, because for China, a consensus is a band-aid. But for India, it is a lasting solution. Unless that gap is bridged, the issues will remain.